There is a city where the sea comes into the streets at night. Not in a storm, not in a disaster movie. On an ordinary winter evening, quietly, up through the drains, over the doorsteps, across a square that has stood for 1,000 years. Every city in this series was destroyed before you were born. This one is different. This one is happening now. And this winter, its last line of defense was raised 30 times in 23 days. This is Venice, a city that is sinking into a sea that is rising, behind a wall that was built for a gentler ocean. And the question isn't whether the water wins, it's when. Venice should not exist. That's the first thing to understand. 15 centuries ago, refugees fleeing invasions did something desperate. They built a city on the water. Millions of wooden piles driven into mud, stone laid on top, palaces balanced on a swamp. It was meant to be unconquerable. For 1,000 years, it was. The water that protected Venice is the same water that's now taking it back. The city floods so routinely that Venetians have a casual name for it: acqua alta, high water, the way other cities talk about rush hour. But routine is doing a lot of hiding in that sentence, because the numbers have changed. And one of the reasons Venice is lower in the water is something the modern world did to it in a single generation. In the 20th century, an industrial port grew up on the mainland edge of the lagoon. Factories, refineries, and they all needed water. So they drilled and they pumped it straight out of the ground beneath the lagoon. The ground did what ground does when you drain it. It compacted, it settled, and Venice, sitting on that same geology, went down with it. In a few industrial decades, the city sank on the order of 10 centimetres. Doesn't sound like much, until you remember this is a city where doorsteps sit inches above the tide. The pumping was banned in the 1970s. Here's the part that matters. The city never came back up. Those centimetres are gone for good. Venice had accidentally lowered itself toward the sea. And then, one November night, the sea showed the city exactly what that meant. November the 4th, 1966. A storm drives the Adriatic into the lagoon and holds it there. The tide reaches 1.94 meters. Nearly 2 meters of sea standing in the city. Homes, churches, archives, workshops, submerged. Heating oil from ruptured tanks spreads across the water and paints a black line on marble walls that you can still find today. Venice was on its knees, and the world noticed. A global Save Venice movement was born. Italy declared the city's survival a matter of national interest. Engineers began designing a defense. Now, you've heard this rhythm before on this channel. A clear warning, a plan, and then nothing but time. Because the wall Venice designed after 1966 took more than half a century to actually rise from the sea. The idea was elegant. 78 steel gates lying flat on the seabed at the lagoon's 3 entrances, invisible in normal weather. When a dangerous tide approaches, compressed air empties them of water and they swing up. A wall rising out of the sea in about 30 minutes. They called it MOS. And then they spent decades not building it. Political fights, redesigns, environmental battles, funding, droughts, and finally a corruption scandal that reached into the project's very heart. The cost of that delay has a date on it, November 19. Another catastrophic tide, 1.87 meters, 80% of the old city underwater. St. Mark's Basilica flooded again. The barriers existed, they were nearly finished, they were not switched on. Less than a year later, they finally were. And what's happened since is both a triumph and the most ominous part of this whole story. October 2020. The gates rise in anger for the first time, and the alleyways of Venice stay dry through a tide that would once have drowned them. The impossible project works. It has saved the city dozens of times since. Hundreds of millions of euros of damage that simply never happened. But listen to the tempo. The system was designed for occasional use. A few exceptional events a year. Tides high enough to trigger it used to happen a few dozen times in a century. They now happen dozens of times in a decade. And this past winter, the sea crossed a new line. The barriers went up 30 times in 23 days. Nearly every single day, for 3 weeks, the only thing between Venice and the Adriatic was 78 steel gates, doing a job they were never meant to do that often. The man who runs Venice's tide centre put a number on where this is heading. Within about 30 years, they may need to raise the wall every day. A gate you close every day isn't a gate anymore. It's a dam. And that changes everything. Here's the paradox nobody wanted. The thing saving Venice may slowly strangle the lagoon it sits in. The lagoon is alive because the sea breathes through it. Tides flushing in and out, feeding salt marshes, clearing the water. Every time the gates close, the breathing stops. Close them occasionally, the lagoon barely notices. Close them constantly, the way the future demands, and you've sealed a living lagoon into a tank. Scientists are already watching for the consequences. Stagnation, algae, marshes cut off from the tides that sustain them. And the sea, meanwhile, keeps rising. The barriers can hold back a 3-metre tide, comfortably more than the worst night in the city's history. But the design assumed the sea of the 20th century. Experts openly ask whether the wall was, in the end, built too low for the century it actually has to face. So Venice now lives between two waters, the sea outside, rising, and the lagoon inside, slowly changing. The city spent 50 years building its shield, and may spend the next 50 discovering the shield was only ever buying time. The question no one can answer is how much. This morning, Venice woke up dry. Tourists will cross St. Mark's Square today and never know whether the gates were up last night while they slept. That's what makes this city different from everything else in this series. Pompeii's quiet before lasted a morning. The Titanic's lasted 37 seconds. Venice's quiet before has lasted our whole lives, and it's still going. The quiet before tells the stories of the moments right before everything changed. This is the first one you can still visit. If this series is getting under your skin, subscribe. And tell me in the comments, which city should we cover next, before its quiet ends? And next time, on The Quiet Before, an island in the tropics, beside one of the busiest sea lanes on Earth. In 1883, it made the loudest sound in recorded history. A sound heard 3,000 miles away. A sound that circled the planet 4 times. The island was called Krakatoa, and by the time the sound faded, most of the island was gone.